Okay, participants. Help the mentors to remember to do that, okay? Because otherwise we're not going to have a recording to put on the website.
Quick question. Should I record to the cloud or should I record to my desktop?
It's it's faster if you do it to your desktop.
Okay, cool. That's what I'm doing. Awesome. So yes, CADing lesson one, introduction to programs and sketching. Let's get started. For those of you who might need a sign-in sheet again, I think we sent it in the chat, so it should be good. Awesome. So today's plan of action is going to be introduction to a few CAD software. So the first one will be this very magical web application called Onshape. Um, Actually shaking their head there, but it's convenient. It's on the net, so that's why sometimes people opt to use that. And then this very intricate, more industry standard CAD software, which is more formally known as SolidWorks by Dassault Systems. So firstly, we'll be going over Onshape. I will be going over Onshape with you guys, and Ashley will then be going over SolidWorks with you guys. And the first few things that we're going to be discussing are sketch entities, primarily like introductory features of both programs. Some things which are very important to CAD and how to use them, such as relations and dimensioning. And we've embedded practice throughout the presentation so that you guys can understand how it works and gain familiarity with computer aided design. Cool. That said, I would like all of you guys to open your Onshape accounts. I hope everybody got along well with trying to download them. If you guys did, just like thumbs up, emote, whatever. Once again, I just want to know that you guys were able to get your Onshape accounts. Okay, I see one thumbs up. Yes. More thumbs ups. Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, First things first, it's really important to like just do some setting stuff, just so that Onshape can be pretty like easier for us to navigate later on. So the first thing that we're going to do is set our default units. So the way you do that is by opening your account, going to your name in the top right corner, hitting my account, hitting your preferences, and then if you scroll down, you'll get a menu that looks like this to set your default units. And the three default units that I would like you guys to set are length in inches. I'm sorry, in advance. Your angle units in degrees, and then your mass units in pounds. So if you can go ahead and do that real quick, and then once you're done, thumbs up to confirm.
Um, what if I already had done that, but I didn't choose those settings? How would I go on the site and change them?
So, I mean, to be honest, whatever you're comfortable with, but the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be working with these in today's lecture.
Yeah.
So the way
No,
you do that,
I just pressed next. I didn't even look.
oh, okay, no, you're good, no
Yeah.
worries. So the way you do
Uh,
that is by just opening your account, going to your name, then hitting my account, your name in like the top right corner, hit my
okay.
account, hit preferences, and then it'll give you a menu of a bunch of different settings, and then
Oh, okay.
setting your default units is one of them.
All right. Thank you.
No worries.
What we need to change real quick?
Um, your length in inches, angles in degrees, and then mass units in pounds. To be honest, we're going to be in the Onshape section of this lecture. We're only going to be concerned about like length in inches. So, yeah, just make sure that that's set, and then obviously the three decimal places, which I think is default. Cool. Once done, just thumbs up or hit any other emoji to let me know let me know that you're good. Okay. Okay, I see several thumbs up, so I'm going to move on to the next step. Again, the mentors are in the chat if you guys have any questions, so please feel free to ask there. The second thing I want to set is mouse controls. And we're going to recommend you set the SolidWorks mouse controls because that's usually what's standard. And like, it's just, easier if you're trying to get used to using both CAD programs if you have the same controls. So you can see what the SolidWorks mouse controls are there, and like they're pretty standard, and they will help us later on in the SolidWorks portion of this lecture as well. Cool, and mouse control settings will be in the same place as the previous previous unit setting, the default unit setting. So just go ahead and set that as well, and let me know once you guys are good. Okay. I see several thumbs ups now. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. For reference, this is the previous slide in case you guys need to access how to get to these settings.
Excuse me, if the default is 0.123 already, I don't have to change anything, right?
Yeah, no, you're good.
All right.
Awesome. Okay. That said, I'm going to continue on. Quick thing about CAD, which will probably save you a lot of time and anguish in the future, is please make sure you guys have a mouse, or try to at least like have access to a mouse. Panning around your CAD parts, you'll realize later on with a trackpad is such a pain because it's so hard to do it. So if you guys have a mouse, that would be optimal. However, if you don't have like access to a mouse, it would be a good idea to kind of get used to these trackpad shortcuts. So to zoom in, you hit Shift Z, or pinch your trackpad. To rotate, you can use your arrow keys or click right on your trackpad, as well as to pan, you can hit Control Shift and then use your arrow keys to pan around your part. Later on, I'll show you guys something in Onshape, which helps us like pan around our parts as well. But again, having a mouse will make your life a lot easier. So please, if you can, have access to a mouse. Okay. All right. Once you finish your Onshape setup, you're going to see a page that looks like this. Right now, most of your pages probably don't look like this because this one has like different CAD files already. It's probably just going to be a blank, an empty setup page. So empty home page, I'm sorry. So basically this is what it should look like after you've completed the steps to enter Onshape. All right, first thing about this page, you'll see three kind of main areas that you guys want to familiarize yourself with. So the first one is your access to your current documents. So that's where you're going to be able to kind of see everything that's saved in your Onshape account. And the thing about Onshape is it's on the web, so it's automatically saves basically any project you really work on, which is amazing. No oh shit moments that I forgot to save the part, so that's always good. In the top right corner, you'll find your access to your account information. So like we did earlier, that's where we access our default units or our mouse controls, etc. And then in the top left corner, you'll find this button to create new stuff. So this is the button that we're going to use to create new part studios, to create new assemblies, and basically to create all the files that you guys can see under the current documents tab in the screen. Yeah, so those are the three things that you can find on your homepage that are really good to familiarize yourself with beforehand. Awesome. So the way you actually create a new document is by using the create button. So when you hit the create button, you'll get a few options. You'll get an option to create a document. You'll get an option to create a folder, import, export files, whatever. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a document. And if you guys want to familiarize yourself right now, and get a head start on this, go ahead and create your first document as well. You guys can follow along with the stuff I'm about to present to you in the following slides. So actually, that would be a good idea. If everybody can navigate to Onshape and create a new document, that way you guys will be able to follow along exactly what I'm showing you right now. And once again, once you guys are done with that, I would love for you guys to just drop a thumbs up so that I know when we can move on.
Excuse me, can you show it again one more time?
Yeah, of course. So the way, what would you like me to show again?
Yeah, that's just because I was there, right? I didn't see it, sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries. So yeah, once again, if you want to create a new document, you just go to the top left corner and create button and then hit document. And then you'll end up with a page that looks like this. Cool. I saw a bunch of thumbs ups. So this is what we call a part studio, or what Onshape refers to as a part studio. This is where you'll be creating most of the sketches that you're going to be working on, most of the parts that you're going to be working on. And so it involves several different features. I'll start from the bottom left corner. So you'll see a couple tabs here. You'll see a part studio tab and you'll see an assembly tab. Part studios are essentially for individual parts. Assemblies are where I can combine more than one part and weave them together to create a larger assembly of what I'm trying to actually make. Right above that, you'll get in the sidebar, you'll see a bunch of your parts listed there. Right above that is what we call a feature tree. So in that you can navigate your planes, you can look at the different versions of your document. You'll also be able to see later on when we add different sketches or different extrusions, etc. It will all be listed in there, so you'll be able to see the different features that have been used in your CAD. The top, you'll see a bunch of these little icons. These are your tools. That's why it's called the toolbar. Again, top right corner, your profile and settings. Right under that, I didn't add a little caption for that, but that's basically a little tool for you to pan around your object. So if you hit the top plane, just centers right on your top plane. If you hit front, it centers on your front plane, etc. So to the right of your screen, you'll notice these three little tabs, which are called your configurations. In that, you can change the appearance of your parts and do some other things that, you can do some other things using those tools. And then the bottom, you'll find your measure tools. Those measure tools can be used to, calculate the distance between two things or calculate the angle in between two things. As well as the button right next to it can be used to do mask build. Can be used for mask buildups, but you don't need to worry about that right now. Just know that the tape measure is a tool for you to help you measure things. All right, awesome. Also, just drop a message in the chat if you guys think I'm going too fast or if you guys want me to slow down or whatever. That's totally cool. Just also any questions that you have, just drop them in the chat. Okay, so some things to keep in mind, some, just little bits of advice or some things to keep in mind when you're actually using CAD software. So whenever we, make a CAD of anything, or whenever we design parts in Onshape as well as any other CAD software that we use, there's three main things to keep in mind, which is the manufacturability of the part. So, if I'm building complex assembly or something, and I need to manufacture that part, that should always be kept in mind. How do I actually create that part? The second thing is its efficiency, and then the last thing is editability. So you want to keep those three things in mind so that you can create good designs, and so that the things that you actually design in these softwares actually work the way you want them to. So yeah, these principles apply to all different CAD softwares. So all right. Now that all of you guys should have created a part studio, let's start going over some of the tools. Let's start going over some of the tools that you will see once you create a part studio. So the first and foremost thing that you'll see is this big button on the top left of your screen. in the toolbar, which says sketch. So the way you guys are going to create a new sketch in Onshape is by hitting the sketch button. And you'll be prompted for one thing, which is the plane that you want to draw the sketch in. So once again, if I'll navigate back to these slides, there's 3 different planes that you can actually sketch on. So once again, the sketch button is over here. If you click this, it'll prompt you to select one of these 3 planes. And the 3 planes are the front plane, the right plane, and the top plane. And this will be a recurring theme, and no matter what CAD software you use, you'll generally see these 3 planes. So that's very important. So once you're in the sketch, you're going to have various different tools to use, such as the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool, you can create a center point rectangle, you can create a corner rectangle, which are the 2 main ones that are generally used in this category. The second tool you have is the circle tool. Using this, you can create something called a center point circle or an ellipse, or anything which is circular in shape. Very helpful as well. For both of these, a reference point is necessary. So if I'm doing like a corner rectangle, I need to reference my corner to something. I'll go over this later, but just like it's good information to keep in mind. And then for a center point, the center needs to be with reference to something, as well as same thing for a circle. Is everybody able to see these tools in there once they click into a sketch and select the plane of reference? Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. So as far as you guys are able to see when I'm see and follow along with what I'm presenting. If you have any questions, again, just in the chat or out loud, interrupt me. That's the most important thing. Okay. Random question: what kind of mouse do I recommend using for CAD? To be honest, any really mouse works. Any mouse works. Okay. All right. So the next tool that is of crucial importance, is paramount, is a line tool. It's very important. I see that the descriptions haven't changed, but it's fine. And then the next thing is what we call a construction line. Basically what a construction line is, it's a reference line. Think of it as an invisible line in your sketch, which doesn't actually add any value. It's just a reference to help create other objects. So suppose I want to like mirror one line over some midpoint, and then onto the other side, I can create a construction line in between and mirror it over that construction line, and the construction line doesn't show up as because it's only a reference line. The next one is an arc. You have these 5 actually arc options. First one being a 3-point arc, which is probably the one you'll use most often. So these are a couple more tools. And last but not least, you have this weird double arrow looking thing in between 2 lines, which is known as the dimension tool. This is kind of the holy grail of how to dimension stuff and how to define it in Onshape. That said, I would like to run through an example with you guys real quick of this house that I decided to sketch in Onshape. A couple things to note. Actually, we'll get to that in the example. So let me pull up my Onshape real quick. Feel free to ask any questions right now if you have them. Okay. All right. I would love for you guys to follow along with what I am doing. And that'll help you understand the different features that Onshape has to offer. Sounds good? Okay. So taking a look at this house, there's a couple things that jump out at you, right? If you look at the geometries, there's this rectangle here, there's a triangle on top, there's a rectangle for the door, there's these 2 circles over here, and yeah, that's basically what our house consists of, right? So first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the sketch button, and please follow along. So once I hit the sketch button, the first thing I'm prompted for is a sketch plane, like I said earlier. So in this case, my house is going to be on the front plane because it wants to be on the front plane. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this thingy up here to navigate to my front plane. All right. Everybody cool with that so far? Yeah. Okay. All right, that should be fine. Yeah, it's a couple thumbs ups. All right, nice. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this center point rectangle, and I'm going to make the reference point the center of, or the origin of my 3 planes. So I'm going to hit the center. It's going to display 2 zeros, which are just the side planes, and I'm just going to drag out this, of arbitrary length. I'm just going to drag out. I'm just going to drag out the rectangle of arbitrary length and make sure that the center point is what we call coincident with the center, with the origin. So I'll show you that one more time. So sketch on the front plane. I'm going to take a center point rectangle, make sure it's centered at the origin, and just sketch it out like that.
So I have a quick question. Does
Yeah.
the center point just mean like wherever you pick it, it will be like however you go, it'll be the center, and it
Yes,
doesn't have to
correct.
be in the middle?
Yeah, it need not be at the origin
Okay.
of your 3 planes. Wherever you click is where the center point of the rectangle is going to be. But it's always good to like reference your sketch with the origin as a reference point.
Good question. When I draw a rectangle, it disappears somehow. Do you know what's going on with that?
Do you click to like make sure the rectangle? What do you mean by it disappears?
So click the center, right? And
Yeah.
then
Drag it outwards.
Oh, let me interrupt for a second. Yuji, you might want to try clicking on the feature first and then clicking on the center. Does that make sense?
click
So you see
on
where, yeah, you see where Aniket has highlighted the blue highlight where it shows a square? Can you point to it, Aniket?
Yeah, right here.
I mean on the interface. Where your
Yeah.
sketch
If you
relation
see
is.
the little drop down arrow by the rectangle, if you
Oh, this
click on
one
it,
here. Center point rectangle.
Click on that first and then click on the center that Aniket was referencing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, you can use the cube with the axes to pan around your sketch or like center it to whatever plane you want to center it to. Okay, yeah, cool. Nice. Solid. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our handy dandy dimension tool. So the way you guys can find that is in the top right corner. So we're going to hit dimension. And basically, we're just going to hit the sides that we're going to dimension of this rectangle. So we're going to hit dimension this side first. I forgot what the height was. 2 inches. So we're going to make this side 2 inches. If we do 2 inches, the height of our rectangle is now 2 inches. And similarly, we can also change the width of our house and make that 3 inches. And now we have a 3x2 rectangle. Okay. One question that I do want to pose to you guys, did anybody notice what happened to the color of the outline when I dimensioned the 2 sides?
Was
It went from-
highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
Here, I'll
Turn black.
Yes, correct. Earlier it was blue, and then once I dimensioned it, it did turn black. Yeah. So what that process is basically, or what the blue basically refers to, any blue outline in Onshape suggests that the sketch is not fully defined. And the moment we, once there's a reference for everything in your sketch, that at that point it's fully defined, and the outlines turn from a blue color to a black color. So, and then you'll know a sketch is fully defined once everything is black, as well as that you won't be able to move anything around. Everything is going to be rigid and fixed to a certain point.
Aniket, is it okay if you show the dimension one more time, like the way you designed it?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, the way we do that is dimension tool, top right corner. This two sides and then the arrows in between. Another way you can access it is just hit D on your keyboard. Hit the height that you, or like hit the parameter that you want to dimension. So in this case, I hit the height that I want to dimension. And
So
then I
you
just,
can click the you have to click the corner of it, right? The corner of it to
no, you can click anywhere along the side that you want to dimension. So in this case, if I click here, if I click here, I can dimension along that edge anywhere.
okay. Yeah, I try to click it and it says constraint must involve something from the sketch. Oh, I think it's because am I not on the tool anymore? Sorry.
So that might happen when you constrain your sketch to like something it's not supposed to be constrained to and you're over defining something. So what I would do is just resketch the rectangle and try dimensioning it again, because it might, something might have happened that you didn't want to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is you might end up over defining stuff and Onshape doesn't like that, and then it gives you that error. So all right, second thing we're going to do is create our roof for our house. But before we do that, I'm going to add a construction line going through the center of our rectangle. And the way I'm going to do that is hit the construction line button, which is Q, like I showed. Hit the line option so that I have my construction line and my line option pressed at the same time. And just drop a line through the center of our rectangle that we made earlier. And it'll kind of just latch onto the center point, because that's where your plane runs through. That's where the right plane in this case is running through. So if you just latch on real quick. All right. Are we cool with that? Yeah.
Could you show how you did that again?
Yeah, for sure. So
Does the dimension have to be 3 and 2, right?
yeah, I mean, like for the sake of this, like what the sketch that I made here earlier is, it's 3 and 2. So
Can you show me how to readjust it again? Put an actual number in it.
yeah,
just
so the way you do that is by using the dimension tool. You just hit the dimension tool, hit the side that you want to dimension, and then just change the number that pops up in between the arrows.
I got like 2.2 something.
So yeah, just change the 2.2 through 3.
Oh, okay.
Cool. The question about the construction line, you hit the construction line button, you hit the line button, and latches onto the center, you just drag it through, and then you have a construction line going through the center of your rectangle. Like that. Yeah. Okay. Once we're cool with that, we're going to make the roof of our house. So we're going to drag our first side all the way to this construction line that we just drew, and then drag our second side from the corner of the rectangle, or like the corner of the rectangle that we made, all the way to the center of the house, or the center line that we drew, the center construction line. And right now these lines are blue, meaning that they're not fully defined. And the way we're going to fully define those is just by setting their length to 2 inches. Yeah, so everything is now fully defined.
Sorry, can you show the construction thing one more time?
The construction line thing, yeah, for sure. So the way we do construction lines is by hitting the construction button first, construction, otherwise Q, and then hitting the line option, and then that basically helps us just create a construction line, or how many ever construction lines we want to make.
And then I place at the center, or just put
Yep.
line on the center point.
Yep. So center point of your rectangle going from top to bottom.
Top to
You
bottom.
just have a, yep. So you just have a reference.
And all the triangle things it's not the construction line, right?
Correct. It's not the construction line. It's just a normal line which stretches from the corner of your rectangle all the way to the center line, the center construction line that we made. Yep.
All right.
Sick. Okay, awesome.
I have
Next
a
step.
question.
Yeah, what's up?
What does it mean? I got like a little error code, like I closed it too quickly. But what does it mean when you're trying to define the dimension, but it's like grayed out? Like you know how your the 2, the 3,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is that
like
it
that.
show up like that?
Yeah.
So it basically means that you're just like double defining a side. In this case, I defined it as 2. This is the defining dimension, and then that just kind of shows the measurement of the side. So that's
I
why it
did the
shows up as
other
gray.
I did the other side and it went gray.
So you define or you dimension this side, and it went gray.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's probably because
Yeah, like
we
that.
made the construction line. This is already determining, and then because the edges of these 2 lines are coincident to the same point. And when you dimension this line automatically dimensions because it's symmetrical to this. So you don't need a dimension for both
Oh,
of them.
okay.
Yeah, that's why it shows up as gray.
So it's extra. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now what we're gonna do is make the circular windows to our house. And I would actually like you guys to try doing that. So we're gonna make 2 circular windows on like the symmetrical sides of our houses of our house, and I would like you guys to try doing this, making sure that they're the same size and making sure that they're fully defined and in the place that they need to be in. And I'll give you guys like 3 minutes to try doing that, maybe as a challenge. Or 2 minutes.
Sorry, could you show me the dimension of the circle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just like this. I'll keep this image up for the time being. So I'll point out a couple dimensions while you guys are working on this. Make sure that you have a dimension in between the centers of both circles. Make sure that there's a dimension between the center line and the center of one of the circles and the other one as well. I mean, that should take care of it. And then center to bottom should also be defined. And also the diameter of the circle. So actually I'll just run through it. The way we dimension the diameter of a circle is just by hitting the outline of the circle. So if I just hit the outline, I get an option to dimension its diameter. So I can change that to 0.6 like it did in the example slide over there. Right. And now I have 2 circles that are diameter 0.6 inches. Second thing that I'm going to do is dimension them from their centers to the bottom of the house. So the centers to the bottom of the house are both going to be 1.3. Right. So that's slowly bringing the circles to where I want them to be. Next thing that I'm going to do is distance between the centers as 1.5. And last but not least, center of circle, the center line, center construction line, I'm going to make 0.75. And lo and behold, the 2 circles are now in the place we want them to be in and are now fully defined and are symmetrical with respect to our house.
Wait, how did you set the 1.3 from the bottom to the center of the circle?
All right, sure, no worries. Would it be helpful if I just ran through that one more time? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
For sure, I got you. So first step, we're just gonna plop 2 circles as windows onto our house, right? Put them in arbitrary places. They don't have to be with reference to anything. We're gonna use the dimension tool to put them where they need to be. So the first step we're gonna do is set the diameter of the circles. So the way we do that is by hovering over the outer rim using the dimension tool and just clicking on the outer rim, and that's going to help us dimension the diameter. And we're just going to make the diameter 0.6 inches. Cool. Second thing we're going to do is dimension from center to bottom. So center, I click on the center of the circle. The bottom, I click on bottom of the circle, and I get the dimension that I can place between the two. I'm going to do the same for the other one. 1.3. And I can set it as so.
Thanks, man.
Yep. And then the next thing, dimension the centers. 1.5. Distance between both centers should be 1.5. And last but not least, distance from center to the construction line 0.75. And that should get us 2 symmetrical circles across the center construction line that look like this.
Is
Okay.
there a way where we can instead of doing the heights 2 times for or 2 dimensions, is there a way we can make both circles the same height with 1 dimension?
Yes, actually there is a way you can do that. Actually we'll cover this, I believe, later in the presentation, but just for curiosity's sake, I'll show you this very interesting tool that Onshape has to offer. We'll also learn about it later, but that's fine. You do a circle, and basically what I can do is I can dimension it accordingly as per the previous spec and do it with reference to everything. Whatever 0.75, my bad. And then 0.6. So once these dimensions have been set, what I can just do is it's called mirror. It's going to ask to select a mirror line, and then I can just mirror that circle across, and it's fully defined on the other side as well. So that's another way that you guys can do it. But yeah, for practice's sake and for simplicity's sake, we just double it over. Anyways, last part of our house is going to be our door. And the way we're going to do the door is using a corner rectangle, and then we're going to dimension it 0.7 in height, 0.25 from center to here, and then 0.5 across. So real quick, how that's going to look. Going to click on the caret menu, go to corner rectangle, draw up a corner rectangle, make sure that the point of the corner rectangle is on this bottom line over here, and then set the dimensions accordingly. So. And last but not least, this, which is going to be 0.5. And with that said, we now have a house that has a door, 2 windows, a roof, and a space to live in. So that's the sketch. Do we have questions?
On physical engineering drawings, when we mirror something, is there a specific symbol that to indicate that, or is I'm not sure if there's a symbol on how to indicate that an object on a physical engineering drawing is mirrored like that.
I'm not sure if there's like a particular symbol which is used to mirror, but I mean, it is pretty common practice in CAD to mirror things because obviously you don't want to dimension things twice, and like if you're using symmetry, you don't want to be doing that. Actually, would you know of any like symbol that is used to indicate if you mirror something in engineering drawings?
In engineering drawings? No. But in engineering drawings, and not to confuse everyone else, if you guys have questions about engineering drawings, I can answer during the break. But just to answer a specific question, when something is repeated in an engineering drawing, for SolidWorks, I know that it usually shows capital T, capital Y, capital P, which stands for typical. And it just means that it's the typical dimension for like that same part. Does that make sense? And it's only shown once. And that's meant so that the drawing isn't so crowded with information and it's eligible and easier for a manufacturer to read.
That does. Thank you.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah. What's up?
How do you make sure that the door is centered on the center line?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So right now, the way we've done that is just by dimensioning the distance between the center line and here to be 0.25 and then the width to be 0.5, right? So that's kind of ensuring that it's centered or like it's symmetrical along the center line, and that it's centered along the center line. But yeah, that's the way we did it here. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions, comments, jokes, concerns? Awesome. That said, we can move back to the presentation and I can pass it over to Ashley.
Hi. Okay. So in the beginning of the meeting, you may remember I asked you guys not to have SolidWorks open because it will actually drain your computer. And the last thing I want is to mess up your hardware. So if you don't already have it open, please go ahead and open SolidWorks. And you'll notice that the reason I did this is because SolidWorks usually takes a while to load up and have it ready on your computer. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break for you guys to open up SolidWorks, decompress a little because we're switching platforms. If you're on Onshape currently, just follow along. It's good to know this information and it's good to know engineering terms. And if you're on SolidWorks, I ask that you follow along as I work through my slides. So I'm gonna put a 5-minute timer and we'll come back in 5.
Quick question, Aniket.
Yeah.
Does it save on its own or we have to save it?
Saves on its own.
All right, cool. Thank you.
No worries. See you guys soon.
Can everyone, thank you, I completely forgot about that. Can everyone see my screen? Can I see a thumbs up really quickly? Cool, thank you guys. Okay, so similar process by which Aniket walked through, except I'm not going to spend too much time because there's actually a lot of similarities between SolidWorks and Onshape, and I want to prioritize you guys following along with the interface of SolidWorks, right? So when you first open SolidWorks, you will see this specific page. In recent documents, you see all the documents that you've opened previously with a small little picture of it, and recent folders at the very bottom here, you see all the folders that you opened recently. And then on top, I want to direct your attention to the part that says part, assembly, and drawing. Similarly to what Aniket has touched on already, SolidWorks works by creating these 3 features for you. Well, not for you, but you have to create them, right? The first one being the part, and then once you create multiple parts and you want to create, let's say, like a system, like a robot, so to speak, all those parts are combined into what you call an assembly. And then if you want to demonstrate that to a manufacturer, how something's supposed to look like, to an internship, you create a drawing. In these workshops, we will not be touching on drawings because they're pretty straightforward, and it's just a matter of organizing everything in the way that you want it to show. And it's very simple to learn, and we want to dedicate more time towards your part and assembly skills. So our first point of attention is going to be part, similar to how we were on Onshape. Another way that you may see this pop up is when you're already in a document. So say you're already working on a part or on a sketch and you want to open something new. When you press Control N, if you're a Windows user, this will pop up. Same options will be displayed except in a bigger picture. If you already in the part and you want to not use your keys and you want to use the interface itself, at the very top it'll say file, and you go through the same process. It's actually the very bottom picture that you see here. I understand that it's small and cropped, so it might not make sense what I'm trying to show you, but for that reason, I will be going over a demonstration similar to how Annika did in Onshape about how all this plays out. So Annika already did a wonderful job of explaining what a sketch is, but I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it because it's important. Your sketch is the baseline of everything that you do on SolidWorks, right? To create a 3D part, you need to create its geometry. You need to make sure it makes sense and that nothing's funky or weird. If you are designing something in terms of its performance, you need to make sure those geometries make sense. So the sketch is very important, more so where you place the plane. Annika didn't really touch on this part, but for that reason, I will touch on it. One of my main mistakes in learning SolidWorks was just placing it anywhere. So then when I wanted to create an assembly or when I wanted to modify something and they would explain something to me and say, okay, put it on the top plane, put it on the top, like the bottom plane. I was like, what is that? The reason was because I just placed it anywhere. I want you to think of these planes that you see here, which also appear once you click on sketch, which is, do I have a pointer here? Let's not waste time on that. But once you create a sketch, it'll show this initial option of which plane you want to choose. I want you to think about where your part would be if it was in front of you. So say you want it to be on the wall, it would make most sense for you to sketch it on the front plane, if not the top plane. My default to go to is always going to be the top plane because when I imagine a sketch, right, like let's say I want to make this, can you see it? My phone 3D part, right? I'm going to imagine it laying on the table and my table is going to be my top plane. So when I create a sketch, I'm going to make it on the top plane so that when I extrude it, which is what we'll show you in Monday's workshop, I believe, it'll go upward, similar to how I'm visualizing on the top plane. That would make more sense once I start sketching or we go more into the manufacturing and design process. I also wanted to note, when you are sketching, you will see this very bottom part in like the bottom right corner of my screen. This part that says editing part in IPS, this little black box. You want to pay attention to these parts, right? Because IPS is where your dimensions are based off of. There are options like MMGS and IPS, those are the most commonly used. Here in the States, because we want to be so unique and different, we usually use IPS, which is pounds, inches, and whatnot. And then you also see something that shows you that it's underdefined. I'm not sure on Onshape if it has that feature that it shows you this, like in written word, but in SolidWorks, you will see it at the bottom of your screen as you begin to sketch. And it's just another way for you to check whether or not everything's defined. If you're having trouble seeing the color because the sun is in the screen or whatever, you can check at the bottom. Once it is fully defined, it will write out fully defined. Okay, now for the interface of sketching. At the very top of your screen in SolidWorks, you will see this exact bar. Even if you are in a different version of SolidWorks, it stays or remains the same unless they add a new feature. So when you create a sketch, right next to it, you have your smart dimension. In comparison to Onshape, which was all the way to one side of the screen, this one is on the opposite side of the screen, and it's right next to where you click your line, which is this one, your rectangle, your slot, all these other options, right? And they're all in a box rather than the line in comparison to Onshape. Again, not much difference to what they do. They give you the same options when you click the drop-down menu. I do want to bring your attention to these other ones, which I will be talking about more fully in the next slide, but just be aware that they are there. Like they aren't in a hidden component, they're right next to it. And depending on whether or not your sketch allows it, these will appear as an option rather than this faded kind of gray words that you see here, right? I also want to direct your attention to this part that says shaded sketch contours. Mine is selected. And the reason I do that is because when I'm sketching, sometimes I want to know whether or not something is overlapping. So let's say I make a square and then I sketch a circle and it's all fully defined. I want to know if they are on top of each other and whether or not these lines are intersecting. You want to know whether the lines are intersecting once you are creating a part that's in 3D. I will not be touching on that just yet because I don't want to confuse you guys, but I do recommend for you guys to have the shaded sketch contours set up once you create your sketch because it'll allow you to see whether or not you have closed lines or not, which will lead to problems if you do not have closed lines. SolidWorks likes closed lines, otherwise it throws a fit. Does that make sense so far? Can I have a thumbs up? Cool. Let me know if I'm going too fast if you guys have questions. This is just the definitions I put in here for your convenience, in case you guys wanted more like specific terminology. But they're very similar to what Aniket showed you. There isn't a difference other than its location in the interface of SolidWorks. They perform the same thing. They are displayed in the same way, especially because on Onshape you had the SolidWorks selection for your mouse. I do want to mention the sketch fillets. I never know how to say it, but it's the very bottom one right next to the hexagon and right to the bottom of the oval. That one is it just rounds out your corners. Sometimes you want to include that in your sketch. Sometimes, not all the time. The reason being is because the way SolidWorks works is that when you create a fillet, it'll show the dimension of the radius of that curve, right? And sometimes, as someone had asked in the chat, it creates too many dimensions and then it crowds your work, and then it's hard for you to work or modify things because then you might click on the wrong thing, or you might just like get confused as to what's for which part. So I personally avoid using the fillet as much as I can in my sketch. In your parts, it's a lot easier to use, especially because you can do them one after the other. But that is an option if it's easier for you to do in your sketch. So now, what I did want to talk about more conveniently are these following ones, which would be your mirror entities, your linear sketch, your offset entities, and your convert entities, your trim entities. Trim is just cutting through your lines very, very quickly. It offers multiple options. Usually you use the trim to closest, or just when you hold it down and then you drag it out. I'll show you guys how to do that in a moment. Your offset entities, it just means that they have a square and I want it a homogeneous like dilation inward. I can select that. Likewise, I can do it outward. It works very well, especially when you're taking an exam, like say for one of your classes or you're getting a certification. So you don't have to re-sketch everything and everything remains the same, everything's dimensioned the same. Your linear sketch patterns, you should always be looking for patterns when you're sketching, right? Because symmetry just makes sense. Why wouldn't you want symmetry? Especially when you're manufacturing something. It's easier to work with, and then it doesn't crowd your dimensions. So you know that if you change one dimension, it changes the other, and it doesn't make you do the extra work. You want to look for the easiest way out of the sketch so that it's easier to read. Kind of similar to how Ryan was talking about coding, right? You want to use the simplest code so that it's readable and so that you can navigate through it. It's the same thing for SolidWorks or Onshape on CAD. Your dimensioning should be simple, it should make sense, and it should be something that you can read and interpret. And then, I don't believe I put this on the slide, but you see where it says display and delete relations? That just means when you click on it, it'll show you all your relations, which I believe is the next slide, if not the one after this one. Relations are another way that you can define a sketch, and it's something that I will be demonstrating in my follow-through example for SolidWorks. Your smart dimension, same thing, except I don't know if Onshape offers you all the options that it shows here, such as dim, expert, basic location, basic size. Those I mostly use in assemblies, but we're not in assemblies. So for now, I want you to focus on the part that says smart dimension. That is automatically selected when you click on the top interface. So you don't have to worry about switching that. And if you want to double check, this pop-up will always show up once you select smart dimension right next to your sketch. Similar to, not similar, but like Onshape, you can also dictate lengths, angles. Angles are a little bit tricky, but there's a specific order in which you can do them, which I will also go over. Same thing as Onshape, your black lines dictate that it's a fully defined sketch. If there's a blue line, it is underdefined. If it's a black line, it is fully defined. So as you can see, there's a lot of similarities between Onshape and SolidWorks, which is the reason why I'm not going to spend too much time walking you through each definition because it's the same thing. I already talked about this one, but this is the relation I was talking about, right? There's horizontal, vertical, collinear, perpendicular, parallel, equal. There's nothing scary about this. I know it can be a little intimidating when you first look at it, but all it is just basing everything off your geometry. Most often than not, when you're looking at a drawing, sometimes it won't show a dimension, and sometimes as an engineer, you're going to have to make an implication that, oh, a relation was used, symmetry was used, or these are the same size. I mostly put these here because I want you guys to be more comfortable with these quote unquote engineering terms, so that when you're communicating something like in a team, or you want to like make someone visualize what your design is, you can use this terminology. I will walk through what these are and how you can use them in defining your sketch when I do my walkthrough, which is right now. So you will see here, I basically copy and pasted Anika's house, but we are not going to follow the dimensions. We're going to use relations. So if you have SolidWorks open, please open that. Let me stop my share real quickly. And just as I prepare my SolidWorks, did that make sense to everyone? What the relations were, what the dimensions were? Cool. Okay, so let me share my screen for SolidWorks. Can everyone see my screen on SolidWorks? Can one of the mentors confirm? Cool. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I'm going to click on this top file part. It's going to say new. Notice that it also says Control N. And it displays to me what I displayed to you on the slide. So I'm going to click on part because that's what we're going to be working on.
I have a question.
What's up, Carl?
This is my first time opening this SolidWorks, but since I did Control N, it gave me a units and dimensions standard. Do I just click the IPS and ISO?
Click IPS, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm here. If you opened SolidWorks 2024, then this is exactly what will show up. If it's something different, that's okay. I'm going to navigate you exactly to where we need to be. I'm going to click on this file that says sketch. Do you see where my mouse is? It's highlighted white. So I'm going to click on it. Nothing's going to show up yet because I have not told SolidWorks that I want to create a sketch. For that, I need to select the sketch part. And now it shows me my planes like I showed you on the slide. So I'm imagining that this house is going to be like a silhouette and it's on the table. So I'm going to click the top plane. Notice that I have my shaded sketch contours on, so that's a good thing. I'm going to split my screen and work like this, which is a very common way to work with SolidWorks if you're taking your certification exam. But we'll get to that later. Okay, I'm seeing this house. My way of going about CADing is just trying to get the shape as close as possible with the least amount of commands as possible, because I want to get this going. I want to get this quick so that I can make iterations to my design as much as possible. So I'm noticing immediately my simple geometries. I'm noticing rectangles. I'm noticing a triangle. I'm noticing circles. So I kind of have an idea how this is going to go. So I'm actually going to click my corner rectangle. I'm going to click it just in an arbitrary place and space because I want to show you the importance of the origin later. I'm noticing this triangle, so I'm going to go corner to corner. Notice the dashed line. I'm going to explain that in a bit. Click here and then click to the bottom. The dashed line that appears was telling me that this top point of my triangle was associated to my midpoint here. So to do that, I'm going to let this blue line highlight to orange, and I'm going to right click on my mouse. And then this window is going to pop up. I'm going to show you the midpoint. I'm going to press select midpoint. So you'll notice that this midpoint is directly under this point right here that's highlighted orange. And I wanted that to happen. Why? Because I am aware that this house has symmetry. From looking at it, from noticing that there is a line going in the middle of this house, I know that there's symmetry, so therefore I'm going to use that to my advantage. There's a couple things I cannot avoid that I cannot get with relations unless this was a square. I'm going to respect the fact that Aniket chose a rectangle. So I'm going to dimension this according to what I see. Let's say, for example, this is 2, right? Again, I wanted this to be the same. So I'm going to make these the same line. I'm going to open this up here. These are highlighted light blue, which means there are my selected entities, which you will see here, the pop-up in your, what we call the design tree of SolidWorks. Design tree is just to your, I'm going to confuse you guys like that. It's to your left side of your screen. That's called a design tree. So when someone tells you to access your design tree, you're just accessing that left bar. I want these to be the same. So I'm going to actually press equal. You will notice that these little equal signs are going to pop up. That means that your equal relation has been so to speak, activated, which means you do not need to apply it again. So if I try to dimension this other side, it should also be 2. Do you guys see that? Now, I want to bring to your attention the fact that it is now yellow. Unlike Onshape, it will not show me a gray line. It will show me a yellow line because it is telling me that I am at risk of over-defining my sketch. And I don't want that. I just want my sketch to be fully defined. It showed me this yellow relation because this dimension that I tried to recently do is already accounted for. So therefore, I don't need to put the numerical dimension because I already said that they're going to be equal. Therefore, whatever dimension I put to the original one, I do not need to apply it to the next one. Does that make sense?
Can
Am I
you
going
show
too
how
fast?
you
Yeah.
can you show how you got the two equal signs again?
Yeah. So let me go
Thanks.
ahead and delete this real quickly. Okay. I'm gonna show you trim entities instead. You guys see how it says power trim? It's my favorite one to use. All I'm gonna do is drag down and delete these 2 lines. Now I'm gonna sketch again my triangle. For those of you who missed it, point to point. So now Walker asked me to show you guys the relation. To show you guys the relation, I'm gonna press Control, select this line until it's orange, click on it, and then click on the other line. It should now be, oh, you see how it says point? I don't want point. I want it to be the line, so I'm gonna delete that. Control or Shift on that line. So now line 7 and line 8 are highlighted blue. I'm in my design tree currently. I want these to be equal. So I'm gonna click on the, where it says add relations. Do you see that? And I'm gonna click equal. And now you see that it has these equal signs on both lines. Therefore, it applies to both lines. Does that make sense?
I can't seem to find that same thing. Were you
Okay.
in Smart Dimension?
No, I was not in Smart Dimension. So what you want to do is
Oh.
hold down your control, actually hold down your shift key
Yeah.
and then click on the line, not on the midpoint, the line.
Okay.
And then click on the other line.
Okay.
They should both be highlighted light blue. Does it
Yeah.
appear now? Okay, cool. Okay, so now I want these to be 2 inches. It's not fully defined yet. Why? Because, oh, if you want to see what's missing in a dimension, you can drag this up and down. So notice that it's moving every which way, and that's because it's underdefined. So if you want to check what dimension you're missing, if you move it up or down, side to side, or like in your V directions, then it will let you know what axis you need to restrict. I didn't restrict it to the origin, right? SolidWorks and Onshape only know the origin. It is the only point on the software or platform that it recognizes as a true statement, so to speak. So therefore, everything I dimension has to be associated to the origin. That doesn't mean you have to, like, say if I have something all the way to the other side of my CAD, I don't have to dimension it to my origin. It just means that my initial drawing has to be to the origin. And I'll explain what that means. My initial drawing was this rectangle. I wanted to be associated to the origin. So therefore, the same thing I did with these lines. Shift, select any corner. I'm going to click this bottom corner because it just makes sense in my head. It is now highlighted blue. I'm still holding down the shift key. I'm going to hold down to this origin. And now point 1 and point 1 at origin are showing in my design tree. I want them to be on top of each other. So I'm going to use a relation rather than using a dimension, and it should be coincident. You'll notice that these lines have now changed to black, which means that they are fully defined, which means now that if I move this up and down, side to side, the thing that needs to change is my length and my height, right? Or width, however you choose to define it. I could easy my life and disrespect the fact that Aniket chose a rectangle by simply saying, okay, I want this to be a square. Let's make this equal. Let's make these equal as well. Hopefully it doesn't yell at me. I still need to define the height, right? So let's make this 2 inches. It is now a square, and I only need to add 1 dimension to do that. but let's say I wanted to create a rectangle. I'm gonna delete this relation. The way I did that was by hovering over the dimension, letting it highlight to orange, and then I'm gonna right click on it, and it'll give me all these options. I'm gonna click delete because I don't want it. Let's say I wanted to respect the fact that it's a rectangle. I'm gonna delete the fact that this is an equal sign. Otherwise it will yell at me. I'm gonna delete this as well because it might overdefine it. So let's say I'm gonna make this 3 inches, and I'm gonna make this 2 inches, right? It doesn't add an extra step. It just means that there are relations you can add that can make your life a little easier, depending on the geometry you choose. Previously, I chose a square, right? So I'm gonna choose the equal relation, but I'm gonna do a rectangle just to keep it to simplicity. Okay, you'll notice that all of my lines are now black, which, if you remember, fully defined, which is great. I'm now going to show you guys the symmetry and mirror relation. Like I said, and
Quick
like,
question.
what's up, Jose?
Sorry.
Okay.
On my dimension for the 2 inches is not displaying. How do I make that display? I just have a like it's dimension, but it doesn't show the 2.
What do you mean? Like, is it out of range?
No, no, it's in like it's just not showing the number.
Can you double click on it? Let me show you on my screen. So, it's highlighted orange, and I
Yeah.
double click. It should show you a modify, and it should show
Yeah.
you dimension. Does it show that?
Yeah, I did that, but it doesn't show the 2 in display,
Okay,
like the
so
2 and the 3. But I mean, we'll get to it later. You can keep going if you need to.
does it look like that?
No,
No,
it has an empty space in between. The line is broken.
the line is broken.
Yeah, like an empty space between 2 lines.
Okay. I'll get back to that later.
Yeah, that's right.
It sounds more like a visual thing, but so long as you're following along, you should be okay. I'll get back to that though. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. So going back to what I was talking about, and it gets showed you guys using a construction line. It is the same thing on here. Just drop it down. You find center line, and I'm gonna make it so that it goes from here. Notice that it shows these blue dotted lines. That means that it is completely vertical to that point. If I take it away, it's no longer vertical, right? So SolidWorks is always going to show me the vertical relations and horizontal relations. Use those to your advantage. If you want something to be horizontal or vertical to each other, use those to your advantage, right? So I'm going to select this, go all the way down. I'm going to make it sideways so you guys can know what I'm going to do. Okay, it's not at the point that I want. I want it to go through the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a midpoint. Actually, let's set some bottom one. I'm going to select the bottom midpoint. And just to remind you guys, I'm going to let it highlight orange. I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to select the midpoint. Now I'm going to click on shift. I'm going to click on the line. And you'll notice that it shows me my relations. I can either do a midpoint or coincident. I don't want the midpoint of this line to be there. I want it to be coincident. Because this line and its length doesn't matter to me at this point. So I'm going to put coincident. Notice that it's still like right? It's still swayed. I want it to be a completely vertical line. I know by geometry that to be a vertical line, I needed to create 90 degrees with this bottom line. So what I'm going to do is I could do a smart dimension, right? Because we said that a smart dimension can do angles. The only way smart dimension will show you angles is when the lines are not completely perpendicular to each other, right? The lines need to be at some angle in order for SolidWorks to understand that you want to create an angle. Otherwise, it will automatically show you 90 degrees, and it's going to freak out, and it's going to show you the yellow warning on the line. I usually, when I want to create an angle, I put the lines purposely at an angle so that it knows that I want to create an angle with my smart dimension. I'm going to show you guys how to define this. So right off the bat, after I confirm my click with a left click, it's going to show me this degree. I'm going to put 90. I don't need to add anything after the 90. It already knows it's in degrees. And it's going to do that, right? But like I said, I want to focus on relations. So I'm actually going to Command Z this, which just undoes what I previously did. And I'm going to use my relations. 90 degrees is another term for perpendicular, right? We all know that. So same thing that I did before, taking my lines, and I'm gonna see this relation here. It's highlighted perpendicular because it's predicting that I want perpendicular. It is not telling me that it is perpendicular. The only way you know if a relation has been added to your sketch is when the green box appears. And it'll show you that little picture from here onto here. Does that make sense? Did everyone get that? Can I get a thumbs up or a head nod? Cool. Okay. So I'm going to click perpendicular. It changed, right? And now I know it's smack in the center because I know I added the necessary relations. I'm going to use this line later. I'm not going to touch it just yet. I actually want to delete this line because I'm noticing that I want this to be a fully shaded region, so I'm going to delete it. These are no longer there. Can anyone take a guess as to why these are now blue? It's okay if you don't know. Okay. It's not fully defined now because if you remember, when I was sketching these two lines, I was waiting for the relation at the top line to show me that the midpoint is identified by SolidWorks, right? And what I mean by that is, let's say I create this line again. Do you guys see how this midpoint is here?
Yeah.
When I was sketching these two top lines, it highlighted to me that it was at this specific midpoint. So it wasn't taking into consideration the bottom line, but rather the relation that was created in these two top lines initially was based off of this top line from the house. But I deleted it, right? So when I deleted it, that relation, that midpoint is now gone. So now SolidWorks doesn't know what to do because that midpoint relation isn't there. And it's not getting the fact because it's a computer. It's not getting the fact that this bottom line also has a midpoint by which it is symmetrical to. That's okay. It doesn't change anything. If you want to confirm that, just move this here, right? You see how it moves out of position? It's no longer in this vertical path of this line. All I have to do is just highlight that, press coincident, and it's back to normal. It now has that midpoint relation that we were going for originally. More specifically, it has a point that it can go back to, which is why the lines are fully defined now. Does that make sense? I know that can be a little bit trippy, so can I get a thumbs up in the participants?
Makes sense.
Cool. Okay, so now back to what I was talking about with symmetry. I am noticing that there is a circle here and there's this rectangle here, which fall either at an exact distance from each other or right in the half. So I'm actually going to start with this square, this rectangle just to show you guys what I mean. Let's say I want this here, here, and here. I'm going to go off the books a little bit here. I'm not going to follow dimensions from here, but let's say I want the line from here to this midpoint here. I'm going to drag it down because I don't want it to cloud my workspace, right? I want it to be visible. So let's say I want it to be 0.35 inches. Now let's say I want this height. So I can either click this top line or this bottom line or this length line. Either way, it's going to give me the same relation. Here to here. Let's say I wanted a nice even number, 0.7. That's not fully defined. If I want to create this exact same symmetrical door, it only makes sense to me that if I don't want to sketch this again, or if I want to do it all in one go, I'm going to use my mirror entities so that it can just like flip over. Now let's say I want to finish this house really quickly. I'm in a time crunch and I just really want to get this done. I'm also noticing here that these two, can I zoom in? Yes, I can. Circles are symmetrical, right? Same diameter, same length. So I'm going to create the circle similar to how Annika did. Dimension it. Also highlights orange. It will always highlight orange when you're hovering over it or when you have selected it. It is now light blue. I want it to be 0.6. It's blue. Why is it blue? Sorry, that was very abrupt. Can someone tell me why it's blue?
Because I don't know.
Is it the placement that's being undefined yet?
Right. It doesn't have a length from a specific point that is already defined. So I need to give it that direction. Right now it's just kind of in an arbitrary place in space. It only knows that it's 0.6 in diameter, but it needs to know where it is in relation to something that is defined, whether that would be the origin or something that is a black line. So let's say this distance from here and here. Oh, let me answer that a little bit. Let's say I want it to be 0.75. It's still undefined because it doesn't know how high off of a defined path it should be in, right? So I'm gonna either click the perimeter or click the center. It doesn't matter because when you click the perimeter of a circle, it still will do it in relation to the center point of the circle. So it's either you click the perimeter or you click the center, it's the same thing. SolidWorks will register it as you're clicking the center of it. Click the bottom line because I want to know how tall it is off of it. I'm seeing that Aniket has 0.3. So, oh, sorry, 1.3, excuse me. It's not fully defined, right? So now, like I said, super quick, super easy. I don't want to do the other ones because it's too much work and I'm lazy. Mirror entities. Entities to mirror are the original entities, right? It's the original thing that you sketched, which is going to be my circle, and it's going to be these lines. Notice that it's lines because it's not a full rectangle. I only use the line feature from my sketching features. So it's not gonna select like an arc, right? And it'll show up here in your design tree with line 11, line 12. Don't pay much attention to the line number. It's just the order in which you apply it to your sketch. If you want to, go for it. I just personally don't do it because I can see them and I know where they're at. I want them to mirror about, right? I cannot click from like this line. If I click this line, it'll do it that way, right? I don't want it that way. I want it to the other side, directly horizontal to it. So I'm going to deselect this. I can do that by right-clicking this option in mirror about and put clear selection. I want to click this center line, which I know for a fact is going to mirror it to the other side. You notice now that it gives me a preview in yellow, right? It's just a prediction of what it's going to look like, which is more than likely accurate in SolidWorks. It's always the case. I'm going to click OK. You will see, someone had asked me about drawings of what if it shows it in mirror. It doesn't, but in sketches it does because it shows this thing. If I hover over it, you'll see that it shows symmetric 0.19 because it's symmetrical on the other side, or symmetric arc, or symmetric line, or symmetric point, right? That's how you know that something has been mirrored and the function has been complete. When you see this relation, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to show you guys really quickly because you guys might use it in your next activity. Oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't been checking the chat. I have to get the sketching page from the lesson page. I can do a quick run through it afterwards. Let me just get through this example really quickly, guys. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. It's not constraint. Yes, you're right. So I'm going to show you guys really quickly how to make a linear sketch pattern. I don't want the x-axis. I'm going to delete that. I actually want this line. Direction is just like by what axis it wants it to go about, right? So it's linear. It's not going to go horizontal or vertical unless I tell it to. I want it to go horizontal. I don't really care about that. So this is the dimension per like thing that I copy. So in the case of the circle, it's going to be the center point of the circle to the next center point. I don't really care about that. Entities to pattern is what I really care about. I want it to be the circle. Notice how 0.10 inches isn't going to give me enough length. The reason being, because as I said, SolidWorks will only register the center point of the circle, not the perimeter. So if I want it to be like length out, I'm going to have to put it like 0.90. I'm going to press OK just so you guys can see what it looks like. You see how it created a sketch pattern linearly along the line that I chose? If I would have chose this vertical line, it would have done it upward. Does that make sense? So the line, whatever I choose, is just the direction that it's going to go to. You notice that it's blue, it's not defined. Here, you use your smart dimension. Like I said, you use something that is defined to something that's not defined so that you can create the fully defined thing that you want. and now it's all black. Did that make sense?
Wait, what are you doing?
I created a linear sketch pattern.
Okay.
Which step did I lose you in? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go back from this because that's not what I want the house to look like. Right? This is the house. I did it using mostly relations and using the fact that I know it has symmetry, so I'm gonna use my mirror entities. Let's say I wanted to make like a cookie cutter, and I need this to be the inside out that I'm gonna carve out. For that, I can use offset entities, which I did say I was gonna demonstrate to you guys. So in order to create offset entities, I need to select whatever it is that I wanted to exit out, right? I clicked on that and SolidWorks automatically knows. SolidWorks is always going to make assumptions. SolidWorks automatically knew that I wanted to make the outer perimeter of this house something that I made its dilation, whether it's expansion or going inward, right? So sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you're going to have to go each one and like select it and deselect it. But in this case, I'm going to do it just to demonstrate to you guys. It's going to be all blue. That's when you know that that entity was selected. Let's say I wanted to make a bigger house outside of it, 0.5, and I press OK. You'll see that the offset entities created something that is 5 inches outside of the perimeter. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm seeing in the chat. Thank you, mentors, for answering that. Okay. Yes, you could also make construction lines out of this, should you choose to. You just have to use base geometry, offset geometry. It switches it however you choose to. I'm not going to choose base geometry because it will make my parent sketch, so to speak, into dashed lines, and I don't want that because I want it to be a fully defined line. It has to be a black solid line. Offset geometry is just going to make that the black lines, but construction lines. Does anyone have any questions about what I just went over in terms of SolidWorks?
What are the construction lines used for?
Good question. So construction lines are used when I just want it to be like an imaginary line, so to speak. So let's say, for example, I want to be able to see my midpoint line. Here, let me exit out this sketch. Oh, to answer someone who wanted me to review how to enter a sketch, I'll get to your question right now, Lucia. To enter a sketch, I'm going to click on this window here, and I'm going to click on this part that says sketch, which is at the top upper left corner. I'm going to click sketch, and then from here, it's going to show you what options you have to use as your platform to sketch. It doesn't show you your plane because you already have a sketch here. But if you want to select a plane, here, I can either choose front plane, top plane. I'm already in top plane, so I'm not going to do that. You just go here to your drop-down menu, and it'll display to you these different planes. You could also go up here and select on view orientation or display state. I recommend you go through this part, this top part, because it makes more sense to me. But if you're a more visual person, you could always click here, and it'll show you the cube that you saw on Onshape, but it's just hidden in SolidWorks because you can always select it, and it's kind of disruptive because it shows up in the middle. To answer Lucia's sketch, let's say I want the right plane because I want it to disappear. All I did was just reverse orientation. Lucia, you asked me what construction lines were. So construction lines are just like an imaginary line that say I just wanted there just to see something. So say, for example, my rectangle here, right? Let's just define it really quickly. 4 inches, 3 inches. Okay. I know that this rectangle has midpoints, right? But I cannot see these midpoints. And let's say I want to see these midpoints. I want to see them there. I cannot always have these midpoints be visible. SolidWorks doesn't allow that. So what you could use a construction line for is just display where that relation is at. So you may remember how I selected the midpoint here. And I'm going to select the point here. I'm gonna make them coincident, which just means they're gonna be right on top of each other. And let's say I want this point here to also be at its midpoint. Because this construction line is there, I now know that in relation to whatever I put on this line, it's gonna be to the midpoint of the lines I selected. Does that make sense? So construction lines
Yeah.
are just, yeah.
It makes sense.
Construction lines are more of a guiding baseline to what I want my sketches to be on. I saw people asking me questions on the chat. Are getting ignored when you export the file with either cut. Fine. Yes, what Tina said is accurate. It helps you design, but it is not part of your design. So it's just to help you have a visual. It's how I would put it. Okay, does anyone else have any more questions? No? Okay. I know I went somewhat quickly. Relations can be a little bit tricky. But if you're able to follow along, great. If you need me to demonstrate it one more time, I can help you afterwards. Right now, I want to transition you guys over to your independent practice. So I'm going to stop. Actually, no, I can just continue my share. Let's start the slideshow. If you get frustrated with doing SolidWorks, it is completely okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. SolidWorks and Onshape have a learning curve, and it's definitely not your fault. Sometimes the program just bugs out. Just be patient with it. You guys will get there. Okay, so now I want you guys to practice. I'm going to skip over this one because we don't have time for that. But I want you guys to get into the habit of design intent, especially when you do your sketches, and having a fully designed sketch that's fully defined. So my challenge to you is to create a silhouette that you can use. I'm not sure what Aniket had planned out for the makerspace, but if you guys had an independent project, let's say you guys wanted to make a silhouette stamp, you need to do that through your design intent. And you're first going to do that by creating a sketch. So your challenge is, you don't have to work in groups if you don't want to. I recognize that all of you have different platforms, but if you guys want to collaborate ideas, I totally welcome that. You guys are going to create a stamp, the initial parts of the stamp, and by that I mean you're going to create a sketch of the New York skyline, and it has to include windows of the buildings. It can include a simple car, and it has to include a full moon. Those are just some restrictions that I had to put on so that I know that you guys know what sketch entities to use. But your goal is, you can make it as detailed as possible if you want. It's just so that you can practice your skills, and it has to be fully defined. You can have intersecting lines as well. Chatting Pac-Man. Yeah, chatting Pac-Man. Okay, so I'm gonna set you guys off into breakout rooms. I will also share this so that you guys can see it. Does anyone have any questions before I put you guys out into your breakout rooms? You can use Onshape or SolidWorks. Either or works, whichever one you're comfortable with.
Can you help me with my dimension display of the units?
Yes, I can. What should it have again? It should have a building, windows, and nope, you guys aren't getting rid of me yet. Building, window, and a full moon. Did that answer your question? Okay. So cool. I'm gonna stop my share, and I'm gonna open the breakout room so that you guys can work on that really quickly. Yeah, I'll recreate. If you want to stay behind to ask me a specific SolidWorks question, go ahead and do so. And I'll try my best to help you.
I have a